Hi, good evening, everyone. Glad that all of you could join in on a Sunday evening from comforts of your home for our book discussion on the increasingly popular espionage thriller set in the pandemic, Mission Shengzhan, India Fights the Pandemic by Tuhin Sinha and Clark Prasad. I'm Neeta Aneja, by the way, who joined in for the first time. I'm the founder of Trends, which is the platform for art, social, cultural, and literary experiences. So with me, as I just mentioned, is Tuhin Sinha. I'll give a brief for both the authors just now. So Tuhin is a best-selling author and politician who was, in fact, with us during the very, very initial stage when we had launched our book author interaction series. In fact, he's been a big supporter of our platform. And he believes in us. So I can say that's why he's come back to us. And in fact, we have very, very fond memories of the interaction that we had with Tuhin over his other books. Tuhin, in fact, as you would have seen him a couple of times on, in fact, a lot of times on national media, he's been a very much acclaimed national TV panelist. He's the national spokesperson for Bharatiya Janata Party. In fact, he is one of the most prolific Indian writers with a knack to experiment with the new genres. And as I just mentioned, he's a leading national media panelist and voice of the party in the national media. This is his 10th book that we're going to talk about today. So I welcome you, Tuhin. Yes. And now we have his co-author, Suraj. In fact, he's already written a spy thriller by the name of, which has been a bestseller by the name of Barmula Bomber. He has already written a book around US too. And this is, I think, your third book, Suraj?
Yeah, so third book and second fiction book and third book, but also I've written one small short story, mirror science fiction Mirror or Rim. So that got published in a compendium of other short stories.
Yes, and he's an alumni of IIM. So welcome to our forum, both of you, Tuhin and Suraj.
Thank you.
Our pleasure, our pleasure.
Yes, thank you. So to start a conversation, and I'm sure this question would be asked to you a couple of times more in the other interactions also. So I would really like to know from both of you, how did you manage to write a spy thriller like that together? So how did it all work out? And I'm sure a lot of people have this question for you. And also, how did you get together in the first place?
Well, you know, in the last 7 years, India, or even before that, the country has always faced geopolitical threats of multiple kinds. So we had been planning from 2019. In fact, we had started work in 2019 on a global thriller, which would have the India under siege feeling. So if you, and since you've read the book, I'm glad you're one of the first few readers, you will see how different eerie incidents happening across the globe, be it in China, in Wuhan, or in Turkey, or in the US, all get connected in a very uncanny way. Absolutely. Because they are all meant to be a conspiracy to dethrone a certain leader in the country or to put a certain regime in peril. In 2020, of course, you know, with the outbreak of the pandemic, we took a different route. We weaved in the pandemic, so it meant a lot of overhaul of the story. But essentially, you know, the good part about this book is that it's a medico-politico, geopolitical espionage thriller. So I think it's a mix of different genres. Suraj had written a book called Baramulla Bomber in 2013. And even though I had not written a thriller of this kind, I have written various political thrillers which had briefly touched upon the subject of national security. So with this book, we have tried to take that threat, the intrigue, the machinations which are unfolding in different, via different characters to another level.
And how about you, Suraj? What do you think about it? How did you get together? Writing this book?
Yes. So you'll be shocked to know I have not met Tuhin even now, face to face.
Oh my God, this is amazing, amazing.
But we have known each other for more than 6 years now, and it is a Facebook success story. Let me put it this way.
Lovely.
So yeah, and we have interacted quite a lot over the Facebook chats and all, and then I mean, his first book, which I read, was The Cricket Captain. In fact, that was the only book I read till he reached out to me. And we started discussing on the general topics and all. And then we said, okay, let's do a co-authorship. And we had started thinking about a political thriller. Then it became a sort of geopolitical thriller. And this was in 2018. And 2019, we started writing with that broad canvas of a sort of a biological warfare. And technically, a biology warfare and pandemic, manipulated pandemic is the same thing. And as we were going towards 2019, some news started coming. In fact, you'll be shocked to know that in September, October only, the 2019, the news of the from Wuhan was coming out. So, and mainstream news also covered it. So we just made a small tweaks in the locations and all, but the theme was not changed, and that's how we came up with this one. But it has been one great ride to work on this and trying to see, and especially when Tuhin said when we finished the first draft together, maza nahi aa raha hai, we're not enjoying it. And just 1 month of just a little bit of rewriting after getting feedback, things just turned quickly. So that's the power of rewriting and getting feedback. So yeah.
And that is so interesting. And I'm sure this is quite a bit of inspirational story for a lot of us wanting to write maybe with a co-author and making it a success story and making it happen in the current context. But, thinking about a spy thriller and that too writing together, a fiction piece writing together does amaze me still. So I'm sure there would be a lot of coordination that you would have done.
Yeah.
Yes. So Tuhin, how did the idea of this book came about, and how much time did it take for both of you to write this book?
Like I mentioned, being in politics, I can tell you for a fact that the concept of Andolan GBs is not a fictitious concept. It's a real concept. There are forces within the country which are acting at the behest of international deep state and planning to destabilize a strong regime in the country. So this is not a political statement I'm making. This is something I'm saying with full responsibility based upon a lot of things which have come into public domain and which we have all seen in the country. So you have farcical protests, you have farcical protests which are used as an assembly site for people to meet and plan the next sort of farcical protests. So, fiction has always been, I'm primarily a fiction writer, even though I've written 2 non-fiction books. So fictionalized reality is always something which hits people, which strikes a chord which people right away. Because they see it in a monotonous, slightly monotonous fashion on news channels. But when you make it more palatable for the younger readers, or even by younger readers, I think everybody would just love the journey, the roller coaster journey of different characters, the intrigues, the machinations. So it's a book which is very real. But most importantly, as Maruf Raza, one of the most renowned defense personnel, has mentioned in his notes on the book goes a step beyond what we see happening right now. The world is talking about China's role in the biowarfare. We are talking about how certain deep state players in US, in India, and in parts of Europe have exploited the pandemic to inflict and try to trigger changes in the political narrative to suit Chinese interests. That's the statement which the book makes. And I think it's very timely because it is happening, a lot of the exploits of China is something which the world is yet to see. So this book is futuristic in that sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And to add what Tuhin said, that normally when you think of a threat, we think it's a military threat. But what if it's actually an economic threat? Ultimately, East India Company was a trading company. Every control the money supply, control everything. So we went into the concepts of central bank digital currency, cryptocurrencies, Federal Reserve. We have an economist, a character who's an economist, Dr. Moni Khan Chaudhary, and she understands the concepts and also. So we're trying to bring in the unrestricted warfare, as Maruf Raza said, of China across the world.
So right.
And that unrestricted warfare obviously has a biowarfare angle. It has an economic angle, and plus it has the overall geopolitical angle. So these components make it a very wholesome threat, or a very strong threat or multi-layered threat, which is combated by the protagonists in the book, and were saviors.
So right. And I must show everyone the book. This is the book that we're talking about. It's a beautiful cover, Mission Shengzhan, India Fights the Dragon.
Always a toast.
Yes. Where's your book? Yeah. He's got multiple behind him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved reading it. There are some parts which I already read very fast because I had to be prepared for the interaction today.
Yeah.
So I'll again read it at a slow pace.
Yeah.
So we've just discussed that, but I would still like to know more about it. That was this book result of thinking that China sees India as a game spoiler for China in Asia, and perhaps China's deep plans to dominate the world through what, as you mentioned, experts call unrestricted warfare. Maybe Clark, you can address this question.
Yeah. So India, China go 5,000 years, 10,000 years, depends on where we start the history and all, and it has been. And China growth story actually started in the late 90s towards early 2000 when the actual boom happened. And one of the main reasons for that happening, President Bill Clinton allowed China into the WTO and thinking things will change. And what happened after that is that manufacturing services from Europe and US moved to China. And yes, it was like to see the labor economy to do it. But now with the growth which India has seen, the growth which we aspire to be, and most important, we have the demographic dividend. We have young people, entrepreneurial people ready to be unleashed and working very hard. And why do you think China reverses policy of single child right now? Because they know the population pyramid is not sustainable. In 10 years' time, they will see a revolt. And the important thing to understand is this: China spends more money for its internal security than external security. So it spends more money to control its own people versus this one. And if India becomes a success story, whether it's because culturally we are a success story, I would say. Even the Yoga Day, which came very late, I would say, just came as a prominent. Yoga was there, but it's about branding. If you have Bruce Lee being branding Chinese martial arts, then what is wrong in Kalera Paitu from Kerala or some other stuff in terms of trying to encourage different cultures to show upstairs and all. So it's a cultural warfare, and we were doing that strong. Military, we are, I would say, we are at par for now, and economic, we were going strong. Now, with the democracy being stronghold, having such a success story would be dangerous for narratives. And there's no truth in the world. There's no truth. There's no lies. There's only narratives. And the voice of the stronger narratives wins always.
So right. Very well put, I would say, Suraj. So Tuhin, people who joined late, I must tell them that we're discussing the book Mission Shengzhan with Tuhin and Suraj. Both are the authors of this fantastic page turner. So Tuhin, Mission Shengzhan is a page turning thriller. Okay, definitely a go-to novel to decode China's unrestricted war and a rare espionage thriller set in a pandemic. You've been an articulate speaker. You bring a lot of objectivity in the high decibel TV debates with your structured and with your nuanced arguments. So what drove you to espionage?
Well, as a writer, my writing career, I still have an independent identity as a writer. And as a writer, probably I have experimented more than any other writer in the contemporary milieu. So from romantic books at the start to a cricket thriller to 3 socio-political thrillers, to again a romantic book, then a parenting book, so I think, I draw my kick from experimenting, from raising the bar with every book, from trying to explore a new world and managing to pull it off. But for this particular book, I have to give credit to Suraj because his knowledge about, he's also, his knowledge about the medical world. Because if you read the book, there are a lot of medical elements which are also merged into the political narrative and the espionage narrative, which is what makes this book very special. It crosses genres. So, but beyond this book, I'm doing a historical fiction, which is on Birsa Munda. So I think I like to experiment as much as possible. The very fact that I have not managed to create the same sort of books, the same sort of sequels and quasi-sequels all my life,
Yes.
I think I would consider an achievement. And I would like to experiment as much going from here.
Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, you're one of the very few experimental authors who've been writing all across, who've been writing and experimenting, despite being that you're such a busy person on TV. Clark, as I read somewhere, that author Clark is an alter ego of military Fauji brat, Suraj Prasad. So what does it mean? And you've kept a separate name for your writing?
Yeah, so my real name is Suraj Prasad Srivastav. So Srivastav also, I don't put it, it's just the generic Prasad put it. And both my parents were in the Indian Army. They were in the Army Medical Corps. In fact, my father even saw action in 1971 war. And so I was born in Nigeria. I grew up in Africa, and even there, my father was part of as a civilian doctor in the Nigerian army. So a little bit of, I would say, there is an army thinking and a way. So that's why I call myself an army brat. And having a mother as an army officer, we used to have the rules of the house written in the wall. So it's all in good fun, and that's it. So as an author, I thought that if I have to write, then I need to have a different identity and alter ego. Clark Kent Superman was my sort of the childhood superhero, and I was watching him. So that's why I picked up the Clark word. And I thought that if I write popular fiction, I'll write as Clark Prasad. When I write non-fiction or serious books, I'll write Suraj Prasad. So that's the only thing. So.
That's interesting. And one thing, because you've already written a spy thriller before, are you going to specialize, unlike Tuhin, who loves to experiment in different genres? So are you going to really specialize in spy? I mean, are you going to make it?
Yeah. So right now, I think science fiction, thrillers, suspense, spy thrillers. So in terms of thriller suspense genre. So me and Tuhin also write another book on historical fiction. So that's going to be a change of theme for me. But there also we're trying to bring in a thriller element. And on this one book which I'm working on right now on a personal level is a murder mystery, in which I'm trying to attempt not to write a single Indian character. In a way, it's not set in India at all. So I'm just trying to see if I can write an international book that way. So I'm going to experiment, but first I love reading thriller books. So I just want to get on that thing. As a kid, my father used to hear BBC in a Cold War period. So, and Russia, Soviet Union, all the stuff. So somehow since childhood, that is ingrained in me. So let me explore spy thrillers. When I get bored, I'll move to some of that.
Lovely hearing that. So coming back to the book, Tuhin, so tell us about the plot of the book without giving the spoiler. That people who have not read it should at least have an idea as to what it is all about. They have a broad idea that it is set in the pandemic. And I have read the book. I don't want to give out the spoiler. I'd like you to talk about it, this book published by Bloomsbury, India.
Well, let me just restrict it to the fact, like I mentioned, that while the world has begun to openly call out China for triggering this biowarfare, the book goes slightly beyond. A set of characters across the globe are plotting, are utilizing or exploiting this pandemic to actually inflict, trigger changes in political narratives of different countries. But at the core of that attack to change the political narrative, to overthrow a regime, is India at the core of this. So that's why if you have to, if there is one sentence which will best describe the messaging of the book, that could well be, was India the real target of China's COVID warfare? Now, for the first time, we have gone beyond, just sticking to the cliches. We have shown how certain Indian politicians are on the payroll of China in India. So yes, I mean, it's something which anybody who is interested in India's future, who's interested in world's future, who's interested in the future of democracy per se surviving across the globe, would relate with the book. So at one point of the book, there is an interesting debate, which obviously is fictionalized on the whole Quad versus BRICS thing, and the need for a larger alliance of democracies to take on the expansionist motives of a outdated communist state. So I think, Suraj might just want to add because,
sure.
Yeah.
So in a way, there's a saying that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So let us go back a century when we had World War I coming in. There was kingdoms and kings and queens and kingdoms across Europe and the world and colonial empires across. And World War ended and the League of Nations was formed and the countries did not come together to stand up with Hitler. We all know what happened after that. So, there was rise of extreme nationalism in terms of from the fascism's kind across different parts of the planet. In fact, in US also, there was a fascist party. So whether it's Italy, whether it's Germany, so there was rise and these parties did rise up, okay? And no one was ready to challenge them or question them and to talk to them. Now, China right now, it has an immense history of culture, but historically in the 18th, 19th century also, the British Empire in their opium trade and all the stuff, they had a lot of destruction done for the locals. So they are scars. And so there is pain. And now for them, they have a white paper in 2049, 100 years of the communist period. They want to be number one in culture, in economic, in military, which is fair, fine. But take people along. Do not try to hold people down because in the end, who's going to win that way? Yes, every culture is superior and all of us are equal because there's no end to this fight like that way. So that's the threat we see. And China, as a communist, we have an emperor. The president is emperor technically. He is lifelong president. So what form of government is that? If we all know in time. So we have to wait and see. I was saying to Tuhin a few months back that I feel I'm at big risk. Because I'm just a civilian right now. Tuhin is also a civilian, but writing about this and things becoming true, and we're talking about China, and this is about freedom of speech. Speak now, otherwise democracy is gone. And once it goes, it's very difficult to come back. And so this book is about trying to protect freedom of speech and trying to bring democracy, the democratic country standing up for itself.
So right, they're very, very thought of. So this question, the next one that I have, you should answer one by one. Tuhin, which is the favorite part in the book for you and the favorite character that you?
So there are these lovely in 2 or 3 different places. There are lovely conversations between the US president and the Indian Prime Minister. Yes. In the way they talk, the camaraderie, the bonding, and the trust would actually make you believe
that it is how it is.
It is Mr. Modi and the ex-president of Donald Trump. So I think that camaraderie, and I have always, my forte has always been to create characters which are just out of real life. So there is one character who is a young vaccine manufacturer who goes all the way to Amazon forests for his research because he believes, or he's been told, that is where the solution in the Amazon forest, you'll find the solution or probably the ingredients which will help you make the vaccine for the present ailment. So I think these characters, plus his estranged wife is the India head of an app, a Chinese app, which gets banned, but which is utilized to spy on people. So these characters are essentially, they represent the issues around which the story is woven, around which the story is created. And these characters are what bring the book and the issues to life. I think that's the most fascinating part for me in the book.
And who was your favorite character in the book?
Now, it's difficult to pick one because when we create, it's like a child, I would say. But if I look at it, one of the characters which I actually spent a lot of time to create is Yanni Jacob from Mossad, who's actually an Indian Jew. And I researched a lot around the Jewish tribe who came to India, the Cochin Bearers Jews, the Bombay Jews, the Gujarati Jews, and then try to see, even in military, we have General Jacob, who took the sort of the defeat document, the surrender documents. He was in the signature point of view. So making Yani Jacob as an assassin in terms of that kill, in terms of the Mossad agent, that was one thing, and definitely Udita's, because for me, she exploring her character was just like trying something new every day. So yeah.
So right. In fact, two of my favorite characters in the book. So people always want to know what goes behind the books. The behind the scene. So any behind the scene anecdotes that you would like to talk about, so that the audience also feels like insiders, when they read the book, something that you would like to tell them, something behind the scene survey, or some interesting anecdote both of you had, Tuhin and Clark.
Yeah. Well, I can recall the major overhaul which went after the onset of the pandemic, because we had already been working on an espionage thriller. It would have been very unfair to not, include the pandemic. So in April 2020, when we decided to include the pandemic, it was still supposed to be on the periphery, or still supposed to be a part of the narrative. But by the time we completed the book, we realized that, the pandemic had to be given the importance it deserved. And the entire book was a first of its kind pandemic thriller. So the evolution of the story, the humongous and the enormous evolution of the story from the time it was first conceived to how it has been brought, how it has come out, based upon the changes which were happening in the world, is very interesting.
And how about you, Suraj? Anything to add to that?
Anecdotes, right now, a lot of stuff is going in the head. I don't know exactly what to share, but Major Vihan Swaraj, who is a member of parliament, and he's an ex-army doctor, to develop him as a character, I had a long discussion with my father, who himself is a medical doctor. I had a long discussion with Tuhin, because as a member of parliament, as a rookie member of parliament, what would will go in his mind? What kind of challenges would a normal person, when he becomes member of parliament, would face? So those kinds of stuff. So getting those details in the character, that person who has to be politically correct also, and yet has to get the things done, and has to balance it out. So to build Dr. Vihan Swaraj character required a lot of discussing with people. So I would put it that way. So
I think just to add over here, for us, the designing of the cover was a very fascinating process.
Oh yeah.
And also the title, I'm sure.
The title, of course, again, the Suraj came up with this name, which I was initially a little skeptical of, because Shengzhan over here is not the name of the place in China, which often people confuse it with.
Okay.
In Mandarin, the meaning of Shenzhen is a holy war.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's a holy war which China is fighting against the world. And again, if you see the eye over here, it's the evil Chinese eye, which is, watching over the world.
Yes.
The red part is China, which is trying to expand itself and trying to transgress other powers. And the blue part, though small at this point of time, is trying to fight back and regain its space, which is India.
Yeah, and the important thing to note, Neeta, is that the blue part, this is Ganga. This is Varanasi, this is Ganga.
See, so interesting.
We're fighting back.
Lovely.
So Mumbai and Delhi need no longer to be the representation of India abroad. Now I think the innate symbols of our civilization, Ganges, and Banaras, are apt representation of India internationally, which is what the book is conveying.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I never thought it that way. Now that you explain it, it becomes so much clearer.
Yeah, and a lot of thinking has gone in. I would like to give a shout out to our designer. Cover design by Syed Dilshad Ali from Bloomsbury. Fantastic guy, a lot of discussion, a lot of changes. He was very patient with us, and he gave the suggestions and all, and we came up with it. And especially when General Syed Atta Hassan and Maruf Raza read the book and gave the feedback, and especially on the email, I was like, my jaws dropped. Like, yes, we have done something good. out here, because when they say that people who want to understand China's problem and the dangers we have, read this book, because this is not a non-fiction book, this is a fiction book, but it gives in a a good way to what can happen. So and especially youngsters read this book.
I mean, the cover, now I've read the book, but cover, I was liking it, but I didn't know the history behind it. So it all makes a lot of difference when people read the book. They like to see the cover, feel it. It's a little embossed also.
Yeah.
So last two questions from my side before I leave the floor to the audience, and I would request people to, we have some questions, we've received some questions which Dia maybe can read out a little later, but there are, you guys, whosoever is present today, you can put in your questions in the chat box and I'd like to take them. So any characters in the book that has been inspired by the real characters and you wish to write a sequel?
Well, most of them. Like I said, I mean, the interplay between fiction and reality is something which is very close to my heart. And in the political world, like, people have very cliched notions about politicians, but they might be very interesting characters beyond what you see of them in public.
Yes.
So all of the characters, whether it is the character of a wily politician who we later discover is acting at the behest of China, he's on the payroll of China, or like I mentioned, the character who it won't be exactly correct to say he's a ripoff from Adar Poonawala's character, but yes, I mean a young scion of a business family which has been into producing vaccines for generations. That is one of the important characters. So most of the characters are straight out of real life. There is a very thin line which separates them. But yes, I mean, at the end of the day, they're all fictionalized and they are adequately different also from what they are in real life.
And so when I wrote Baramulla Bomber, one of the feedback I got was that it's black and white. Things cannot be so black and white. Yeah, that was like when I started 2008-9, world has changed. So one of the things for me, the challenges was that writing is to, not everyone is perfect. So though some character may be a little bit more white, but there are always shades of gray. And one has to operate life in shades of gray only. There's nothing as black and white nowadays. So the characters were brought in with those perspectives, spun it, and a politician can fall in love also. So that also has been little explored out there, because everyone is a human being. That has the first thing to do. Everyone is human being. It's not an easy job. When I see Tuhin come on TV with the patience he has on all his debates, I tell them my wife that, oh my God, if I'm there, maybe I'll just couple of my friends are here, so they know me. I don't know how I'm going to handle those shouting and all. So, but a lot of patience is required, and it's a whole different world, and fiction and fact come together, and we'll go. And sequel, yes, there are some thoughts around it, and let's see. Maybe another mission series will come. So
finally, you maybe meet and decide, huh? Till now, you've not met.
Yeah, we will definitely meet. We'll definitely meet, because it's been a great journey.
Bonding now.
Yeah,
so close.
Great journey. Okay.
Yes. Your book, Tuhin, was definitely a fast-paced, action-packed page turner. A storyline with secret agents and story, all kinds of visual episodes and everything. So did you get yourself familiar with spy tools, to surveillance equipments while writing this book? Because writing a spy thriller, you need to be really acquainted with what really goes at the back.
With the amount that we all do in our lives with the limited means, I think multitasking requires you to extract information from the internet. So yes, that is what I have done.
Okay.
Plus, of course, I mean, you use your imagination to make it as real as possible. Because the good part about fiction is that while it may seem to be real, it need not be exactly the way. So, that's how most of the films and, including whether it is Uri and all, I mean, writers don't exactly go to Uri to see what happened. They go by a certain description which is out in public domain, and then obviously they apply their minds to make it seem as plausible and as real as it can be. So that's the idea, or that's the route we follow.
Yeah, and to add, like One thing in the book you must have seen is our discussion on Tibet, and that's a very touchy topic to bring up also international stage. So we have not shied away. We spoke about it, and in the story we had actually brought in the Tibetan army unit, which actually reports directly to the PMO, been in action, and this was much before whatever happened in Ladakh. And when that actually news came out, it was a validation that yes, we are on the right track to look at it. And so this is another anecdote which just came to my mind was going through it, because those small things are there, but a lot of research has gone into it. Discussions, going to the past, reading the white paper for the future, because you just put China future white paper, US future white paper, they're all think tank. All you need to do is sit down, read through it and get an idea, and then think of sort of a canvas. This would happen, that would happen, in the movie.
So in fact, the book also delves into the past, because there are some very interesting anecdotes which are connected to the present. For example, in 1950, Sardar Patel had written an exhaustive letter to Pandit Nehru, warning him against, trusting China.
Yeah.
And there were certain very specific points, which if you read that letter today, you would realize the genius of Sardar Patel and the blind trust which somehow Nehru had in China.
The vision of our first home minister, who actually could have been the first prime minister, was mind-boggling. The letter is actually there. We have not changed a word. We just use the verbatim, and it is really shocking to think of the language. He could say 50 years, 60 years ahead of time. And that's what a statesman should have, vision.
At the same time, there is a very vivid mention of the 1897 pandemic in the country, playing out in Pune at that point of time, and that coinciding with the movement of Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So the thing is, because in the last several decades, India had been free from any major pandemic. The last epidemic which struck India was in 1975, prior to this. And in that, only 15,000 people had died compared to 4 lakh people right now. So there was a certain complacence in the population that such a thing would not hit us again. But if one refers to the 1897 pandemic, which has a passing reference and obviously, Suraj has taken a lot of effort to put it out in a way that it doesn't seem monotonous. That reference gives out some cues on how the present pandemic could have been handled better. So I think, this speak into history selectively, but very engaging way is also one of the things which the book offers to the readers.
Yeah. And one thing I like to quote from the book, which is there in the start only, it's by Chanakya ji. This is actually, it's there in Arthashastras, there's a translation. The arrow shot by the archer may or may not kill a single person, but stratagems, that is strategic affairs, devised by wise men can kill even babies in the womb. So when he said wise men, it basically means the kings of that time, that one should think forward. But what if the stratagems are not devised by wise men, but by evil men or worse, group of evil souls? So it's not it's about having evil in the soul. So India has a rich culture of spirituality, and we have to revisit our past to understand the strength we have in which is happening, and which can increase. And the more discourse and dialogue we have, we know that we have a lot of strength inside us. So,
It's really a value add book. It's much more than a fiction. There's so many parts one has to read, one has to imbibe, and you guys have done a wonderful job. Suraj, one of your friends is here today by the name of Mr. Sandeep Chatterjee.
Yeah, Chatty.
So, yes. Sandeep, can you unmute yourself? I mean, I would like you to directly ask them a question. You've mentioned that question, but I would really prefer if you switch on your video and ask.
So I'll just tell Sandeep and me in 2001 won a business plan competition, and on herbal pharmaceutical business, and we had a rich prize money of 50,000 that time, right, Sandeep?
Right, Sandeep. Welcome.
I think Suraj, great to see you. I think I have read your first book, so I know what it is. So I had given certain feedback, and hopefully you must have definitely done better this time. So I will have My question is, I know it's a virtual. I know when we did a lot of projects together, it was very easy because we used to go to each other's room and that's how it used to work. But during this pandemic, it was a virtual platform. And how did you manage to write, both of you write a book? Did you divide sections or how did you go about it?
Very important question. Yes.
Yeah.
The process of your writing together.
There's no fixed process, but a lot of improvisation was required. There were certain thoughts, certain characters built together. Tuhin gave me a lot of independence to actually work, and he challenged me in what we did, and I challenged him in what he did. Like the process was simple in terms of it. We have an one line thing. India is under threat. That is Tuhin's point of view, which is very, very important for us to understand. India is under threat before now and will be further. So then we need to define the threat. That also that we thought of that there's no whiteboarding done. We did on a phone call, WhatsApp call, video call, discussion, all the stuff. So as so Sandeep, just like a tree diagram, we kept put in the dots in the mind. I started making notes in the paper, the tree notes, second thought, and then we brought the character. And we have killed off characters also. The book was supposed to be smaller, then became bigger, then we shortened it. So in the way, but trust is the most important thing. And it's very important, and I thank Tuhin for giving me that, and it was a wonderful journey. So
perfect, and I will definitely read your book, and I will connect with you.
Yeah, and just to add, Sandeep is a very senior corporate executive in the supply chain area, and he even goes and teaches at IIMs apart from working. So supply chain in China, he has a lot of cues maybe.
Thank you, Sandeep, for being on our platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Next we have Dia. She's a student of class 11th. Yes, Dia.
Hi, it's so good to hear you both.
Thank you.
I was wondering, like, when you had a difference of opinion, how did you manage to settle that?
Yes.
So there wasn't too much of a difference of opinion because, I'm not too possessive if I'm convinced that, the co-author is involved in it with all sincerity and adding value to the book. I'm not very possessive about the plot. So maybe, had it been, and like I said, Suraj, anyway, while I have experimented with multiple genres, Suraj has specialized in, this genre. He used to call himself, I'm not sure whether Twitter bio still has that, conspiracy.
It has. Conspiracy realist.
So, I in such a situation, I would much rather trust his instincts than unnecessarily try to tamper with the characters, try to tamper with the situations he has created. So since there wasn't much, beyond the initial thoughts, the chapter outlines or the chunk reviews, fortunately, I think most of the things fell into place pretty well. And despite the massive overhaul which the book went into, post April 2020, I think it still came out in record time, which shows that there was pretty much, we were pretty much on the same page.
Yeah, and I just like to add to Tuhin's point, the most important thing, this is also connected to Sandeep Chatterjee's, which I was given the answer. Communication. If I'm not able to write a particular day, or for like 3 weeks, I've got, because I have a day job. So if I'm 3 weeks, I'm busy, I used to tell him I cannot pick it up. After 3 weeks in a weekend, I'll start picking up. And keeping channels of communication open and being honest. Because if you don't do that, Tuhin will think something is happening, but nothing is happening. That's not right. So we have to keep channels of communication open and know. And when I used to take some leaves, and one thing helped the book was that I was getting married in 2019 towards the end, so I took a lot of leaves, and so in that leave of period, I used to write also. So that probably helped, maybe. Yeah, so that's the first answer.
Yeah. So the second question was, how did publishing your first book change the way you wrote your second, third, and fourth?
Well, every book is a learning experience. Like I'm sure even for Neeta ji, every new session, she, probably draws some notes from her previous session.
Yes.
So I think, for me, it's been a 15-year journey. My first book came out in September 2006. And that was the time when the Indian publishing industry was in a much, in a somewhat nascent stage, because it was while it had begun to open up to Indian authors, it was still largely dominated by foreign books. Today, you have a plethora and surfeit of Indian writers. That was not the case then. So from then till now, when you have mostly Indian authors, so let me, if I have to, in 2 sentences, if I have to tell you the journey from 2006 to 2021, in 2006, it was difficult to get published, but easy to make a name for yourself. In 2021, it's far easier to get published, but far more difficult to make a name for yourself.
And for me, the writing process has changed. It took me 5 years, 5.5 years, and a lot of rewriting to get the first book out. And this took almost 2 years, from 2019 to almost 2 years in a way, 1.5 years. But the most important change happened is that I'm able to get inside the character head much faster. In fact, we're writing another historical fiction right now, and just in the morning for half an hour, I'm in the character head. So for me to get in, get out, I know it sounds like a little like Loki, get inside and getting out, but it's far easier to understand the process and all. And Tuhin has screenwriting. He has written TV series and all also. So he has a lot of knowledge to share. And he just today morning gave me a tip which helped me finish off a couple of pages faster. So it's by learning. And a writer is a student all his life. Like the person has to learn and learn and learn. And when I wrote the first book, I thought I'm writing for myself. But later I realized I have to write for the readers, not for me. And that's a thing I promise, that I will improve every time to write for the reader, so that one day, maybe 10 years down the line, because in the end, we're all going to leave this realm and go wherever. We don't know what's going to happen next. What we leave behind is memories and thoughts. And writers can have an ability to leave behind words. Ayn Rand is not there, but Fountainhead has still their clubs form, people discuss about it and also. So everyone has a story in the heart, speak it out, tell it, because in the end, those are your words, will remain forever. Ramayana is there, everything is there. So from Valmiki to us. So.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Babita Batra.
It's from Babita Batra. What is your favorite book? And if you had to do something differently as a child or teenager to become a better writer as an adult, what would you do?
For me, okay. Favorite book, there are many books. I do not know which is favorite because every time is different. So for me, Robin Cook, was a very good book which I read as a kid. I even read 1984, George Orwell. In fact, George Orwell is born in my ancestral town, Motihari. So somehow I feel the ghost of the deep state is inside me because of George Orwell. Like Hemant, one of my friends, he says that. So it is very difficult to say. Not a penny more, not a penny less is also comes to my mind. So these are different books. So I don't want to say I have a favorite book, but these are like books which gives you energy back. Right now I'm rereading Dune. So just to get in the science fiction zone again. So have favorite storylines, like thrillers and suspense would be great for me. But if one book I have to pick for me would be Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less. So Jeffrey Archer. It's simple, straightforward. Sidney Sheldon, many books are there and all, but Not a Penny, Not a Penny. It's an suspense comedy, sort of like a movie drama. So.
And Tuhin, how about you?
So my favorite book is the Bhagavad Gita. I believe that's the best book to guide you to the right path of life. Apart from that, there are multiple books which I have liked for different reasons, be it the writings of Milind Kundera or Manju Kapoor or Khalid Hosseini. But I picked up good points or good notes from different books, but none of them really stand out the way, like I said, Bhagavad Gita does, which is layered and the path ahead.
Yeah, and Dia, to your other question of as a teenager or kid, what will you do different? I don't know what I'm going to say may sound controversial, but I'll still go ahead. Probably I would have invested more so that I could freely write. Because in terms of whatever people think, writers don't make a lot of money. And we're not writing for money in a way. So So if I have to write more, I need more free time, but I cannot leave my job. I cannot do it. So that is one thing I would thought of look at from the financial point of view, reflecting back 20 years, this one, but start early. And I think if I would have started 20 years back, maybe right by now I would be this, because this woman told me, keep writing book. Every 2 years, release one book. After 30 years, you'll have 15, 20 books. And if one book gets hit, the rest will follow. So just keep writing. So start early.
Very important tip, I would say. Yes. I think we have Mr. Amit Kumar. He would like to ask a question.
Hey, Suraj.
Hey, my roommate from my pharmacy days. No, pharmacy days, my NGSM roommate. Okay. There was only 3 of us from UP, Bihar and Delhi. So 3 log hum saath mein roommates the.
Yes, Mr. Amit, your question, please.
Yeah. Suraj, good to see you. Good to have you for the second time along with Tuhin. Last time I remember we had a political analyst. I forgot his name. He was not well. I forgot his name. Anyways, it's a good combo. Suraj, you and Tuhin, I guess it's a great combo. And the future too, you would like to see, you write books together. I was wondering, Suraj, the kind of understanding you have of Indian politics and combining hand with Tuhin, you should pick up, some of the political issues and, write a book on what's happening in these days, especially post Modi era.
There's not a post Modi era, Amit, right now.
Going on.
Going on. Post Congress era.
Post Congress era. Post Congress. Congress, anyway. I don't want to mention the name also. So Tuhin, Amit is also from Patna. So this one. So
I keep listening to Tuhin on the several channels when he comes.
Yeah.
Daily. He's on the TV daily. Yeah.
Yes.
Tuhin, will you like to answer this on Indian politics?
So, at least I have approached those issues in many books of mine, whether that was Of Love and Politics, The Age of Desire, The Age of Power. Last book, which is the Kashmir book, When the Chief Fell in Love.
Yeah.
This book, again, Mission Shengzhan, attempts to address the national security issue, the latest challenges which you see with Twitter revolting or going up in dissent, which is very unexpected or which was very uncharacteristic of Twitter. So today we are we are faced with an information war, which an information war can be as potent and as deadly as military war.
Yeah.
This is an issue which we have tackled in this book. There are plans to do another book on similar lines, but before that, it is equally important to delve into history, because history has been tampered to a great extent. So I appreciate your sentiment, and I can just assure you that many of these issues will get covered in the books to come in the coming years.
Yeah, and Amit,
I have a point to make here, so to stop you. Can't you guys? You have only a fiction to write and then convey what you want to do, because a lot of research you do, right? You get into things, but ultimately the book is a fiction.
Yeah, but fiction mixed with non-fiction elements are there. And Tuhin is writing a non-fiction book. I don't want to steal his thunder. So I think that very important that, Amit, a lot of history of Bihar is sort of given. So we are actually writing a fiction book close to Bihar, which was forgotten. Now, Tuhin is also writing a non-fiction book, which is going to bring part of Indian history, which is sort of, I won't say wiped out, but is very, very small. So those things are there in line. Yeah. So Tuhin, anything you need to add?
No, just wait and watch, have faith, and you will see lots and lots of books coming out, which will delve into these issues of national importance, be it history or be it national security and others.
Yeah. And Tuhin, at a young age, you have achieved a lot. I mean, you have made name for yourself. I mean, long way to go for you.
We are not young anymore. We're just young at heart.
Young at heart.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good luck to both of you.
Yeah. Thanks, Amit.
Thanks.
Let's connect.
Yeah.
We have one question from Nisha Nagpal. They are saying that there must be a lot of visual scenes in the book. And so were you making it together, or did you divide the scenes? And how is, she's got two questions, and how is writing a spy thriller different from writing a normal fiction? I understand it has to have more plot twist, cliffhangers, dramatization. So how's it different? Or is it more challenging to write a spy thriller?
From my experience, I can tell you that in fiction writing, unlike non-fiction, where the chapters can very easily be divided between two writers because they're not connected. In fiction writing, you really need to get into the throes of writing. So that the best flow can happen only if, one person is doing the strategizing, the planning, the reviews, and, the other person writes. So I have been fortunate that way. I have been saved of the effort of writing because I found a better and a more passionate writer in Suraj. And I was largely focusing on the larger plot points, the chunks, some of the chapter outlines, the characters, which are very significant. Because, fiction, like I mentioned, you have to, you can't have one chapter looking very different from the other just because the writing styles are different. That can still be managed in a non-fiction book because you can compromise on the continuity. They need not be connected, but fiction normally doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and in terms of like when I wrote Baramulla Bomber, I was that if I'm supposed to write a book in Kashmir, and Baramulla Bomber I wrote basically after I saw Shawshank Redemption. So those who have seen the movie, the end changed me. I said I need to do something in my life. So I said, let me write a book. Then can I solve the Kashmir problem? Okay. I went to Kashmir, spent time there, and then visualize it. Now, in this case, we are traveling a lot of places. I've not been to all places. In fact, the book also has Antarctica. If I have not been to Antarctica, someday I will probably go there. But visualization is about just trying to reach your artistic side and then see if you have that character in that time and zone and place, how she is going to react. And we and Tuhin used to discuss quite a lot of that in terms of that situation. Sometimes I went a little more out of the realism, and Tuhin pulled me back in. And that is very important to keep it as real as possible and still be in the fiction realm. So we don't have any of those Mogambo sort of characters, that Mogambo villain, wo Mogambo kusha, wo sab nahi hai isme. So we just try to keep as real as possible.
Fantastic. There is one last question from Bindu. She's in fact, she's one of, she also came on my platform. She's written a book called Beauty and the Beast. Is there a clear ending to your book? Relatively simple action? Because like maybe Ludlum or something?
Well, if I tell you, why would you read the book?
Yes.
You need to read the book.
Sorry.
And you need to read it till the last page.
Yes.
Yes.
Because the last page, because the challenge of writing spy thrillers, the challenge of writing suspense books is and that is one reason I want to stick to the genre, because I want to challenge myself thinking, can I outwit the reader? Can we outwit the reader? And that's where sort of thing. And so when Tuhin had some idea, I said, are you going to that direction? Then he said, no. Then it means no. So we have to think how to outwit each other. So devil's advocate. So hopefully people will find that interesting. Let's see.
Definitely. It's quite I have read the book, so I would say that it's quite a cliffhanger. It has a lot of twists, a lot of very interesting characters. So I think everyone should read the book, and I'm sure there's a lot of hype already in the media for this book. And when you read it, you would please read your reviews, definitely.
Yeah.
So, and there is one question, last question again, from Naina Sagar. She's an actress. She says that, are we going to see it on a web series format? That's interesting.
Well, fingers crossed, we are talking to people. But, in the film industry, in the entertainment industry, there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. So till it finally happens, we would keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best.
Yeah. And the thing is that if such a story is not told in a mass audience way for people to consume, because this is again about freedom. And what I feel that this is a time story to come. I feel the universe is conspiring. The destiny has brought me and Tuhin together, and we have written this book in whatever circumstances. So I believe that there's going to be a fantastic history. When we look back 10 years back, in future we look back, something's going to happen. So let's see, positive thinking, and let's see where the universe leads us.
It should come out as a web series. There's so much of material. There's so much of interesting anecdotes. There's so much of suspense in this book at all the angles. And I have loved the book, and I'm sure all the readers will do so. And thank you so much for gracing our platform.
Absolutely, our pleasure. It's our pleasure. I think, there's a lot of warmth in your interaction. The readers present over here, they provide a lot of motivation. So our pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah. Neeta ji, thank you very much. It was a lovely interaction with so many people. And this is it's so enriching to hear from people, discuss and discuss this way. And we are one planet, one world, one human race. So, and we all have common values. Yeah, languages are different. The symphony is different, but ultimately, Saregama Pada Nisa, Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti. These 7 symphonies, 7 words unite all of us. So that's all we have to. There's more things common with binders than differ, and I hope non-democratic countries understand that. Let me put it this way. So.
Already people are saying they want to order this book because they're finding it very exciting.
Great.
And thank you once again, both of you, to being here on a Sunday. I know Tuhin is very busy. I'm sure he has got a lot of debates lined up, and I'm sure Suraj is in the middle of writing. So sparing out time is a big motivation for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.